do.
My name is Frank Stasio, and I'm the host of The State of Things on North Carolina Public Radio, WUNC.
You got that down pat.
I've said that once or twice.
So, just to begin, in the digital age right now of fake news and social media, what has remained the professional and social responsibility of a journalist, and what has changed in this landscape?
Yeah, there's a long answer to that, but the short answer is you're always reflecting some form of truth, but there's a foundation under your question, which is, to what extent is every fact doesn't always add up to truth,
yeah,
right, and yet we're always responsible for reporting the truth as we know it, fact by fact. Was it 2018 or 2017? Was it March or February? Those facts matter, right? Getting those wrong is either a mistake, and if you do it deliberately, it's unethical.
Yeah.
So to that extent, making sure that facts that are objectively true and verifiable are reported, that's always been a responsibility.
Yeah.
But storytelling is much deeper and much more complicated than that. Storytelling is always about framing, using facts in service of a larger image, right? You create a larger, you create a story, and that story is going to be received in many, many different ways, and that's where the subjectivity, both of the storyteller and, most importantly, the listener, is important. So, journalists have always had a responsibility for understanding how stories work and how their facts are going to work in a story to present a certain image or set of images, right?
So how do we navigate that now in this landscape where lines are blurred between where you get your news and also we get grouped in as BPR, NPR, State of Things, Smoky Mountain News. Right. We are ethical, reputable with our names on the line, but we also get grouped in with all the garbage.
Right.
I mean, at least to John Q. Public.
Well, it's not John Q. Public, and that is exactly the problem.
Okay.
We are not lumped in with the garbage for our listeners.
Yeah.
They love us.
Yes.
They think
Agreed.
we're great.
Agreed.
And for those people who, and because we speak truth to power, this often leads people to think that we are biased because people in power. Well, I mean, if one party happens to control the apparatus, then it would look like you're anti that party because your scrutiny, right, your gaze falls on them in the way they're conducting themselves, and it feels to you, somebody else, like you're picking on them.
Yeah. If they don't agree with you, then you must be wrong.
You must be wrong, or you've got an axe to grind.
Yeah.
Why did you accuse this individual of holding a closed meeting? See, because they're a member of a party. You must have something against that party. Well, no, they're in power, and they're responsible for and accountable to us. And when they're not, we have to call them on it. And so this makes us look like we're... And so what happens is the people who like you say you're objective, and the people who don't say you're biased.
Yeah.
And so, right? And that's the deal. So that's where subjectivity, again, it all comes back to that. We are neither objective, nor fair, nor unfair, nor biased. So much of it depends on who's listening. And there's no way on earth that I can tell a story objectively. I've been formed in a certain way.
Yeah.
I have deep opinions, and I care, and every journalist needs to care about how it comes out. So what do you do then? That's the big question.
Yeah.
What do you do when you really care about how it comes out, but know that everybody out there has a right to their opinion and needs to have the best amount of information to form their own judgment, and that my deeply held opinions and passion might just be wrong and misplaced? All of that has to be brought to the table. So that's the long-winded answer to your question. My awareness of all of that, and mostly my deep respect for every listener out there, whether I vote the same way that they do or not.
Yeah.
My respect for their ability to come up with a better answer than I have is what guides the way I put those facts together and shape a conversation or a story.
Well, and you were talking about the media today about how it is a very shaky ground for a lot of organizations, but I feel, ironically, at the same time, it's never been more important as it is right now of what we do.
Yeah, but people are so fractured, and that's part of it. Newspapers were essentially businesses, and the reason anybody bought them and the reason that they were important to communities was because they gave everybody a sense of common identity. This is really, and it's interesting, the rise of nationalism in the nation state owes a lot to newspapers.
Yeah.
For making people feel like Londoners or British or English or French. There was no France at the time of the French Revolution. They spoke 18 languages in that place. But as people start reading and they want to all read the same thing and stories about people maybe 7 blocks over, now I'm a Londoner or I'm a Parisian. So the first thing you have to say is people weren't really always interested in the kind of journalism that you and I hold dear, right? The accountability journalism, the investigative reports. If that's all that those papers did, they would have gone under. They had gossip columns, they had sports, they had comics, that's what people were buying. Now, you extract all that and you distract people through social media now. And I'm really getting to the answer to your question. The sense of a common need and a common bond and a common identity is utterly fractured in this day and age. We don't know. My association with you is different. My sense of community with you is very different. So how I talk to you and how the assumptions I make about what's important to you are not the same in 2019 as they were in 1919 or 1939.
Yeah, exactly.
It's different communities, and so that makes it much more challenging. That's the big difference between a journalist today and a journalist in 1959. The journalist in 59, if you were even a TV reporter, there were 3 networks. You knew who you were talking to. Your newspaper, there was a daily. There was maybe an afternoon and a morning paper in most cities. You knew who you were talking to. Now, that big wide world doesn't even exist.
Well, accountability doesn't exist anymore.
No, because accountable to who?
Yeah.
When I started doing this business, even the people who were under scrutiny, right? If you had serious questions about the way a politician was conducting themselves, they would talk to you.
Yeah.
In fact, they felt they needed to talk to you to get the word out. Now, I cannot tell you how many politicians refuse to talk to us at all. They will not go on the air with us because they know their audience is somewhere else. They know their audience isn't. The people who vote for them don't listen to public radio, so they see no need to talk to us, and they don't.
What do you see with North Carolina right now? Because it's one of those, I guess in essence, a purple state. And you could pretty much divide that between urban and rural voting, cities versus country. But what is it about this state that makes it unique in terms of it being a purple state, that it's never really been one or the other? It's always some kind of mesh.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the answer to that has changed over time because it's always been true. I mean, last to enter the Civil War, and yet loses the most soldiers. And I say more about preparedness. I don't know, but at the very moment that the 1898 massacre was taking place in Wilmington, North Carolina, in that same year, in the city of Durham, the North Carolina Mutual Insurance Company was being chartered, which created a middle class in the city of Durham, black middle class. Wow, what a state! The state that was ground zero for Jim Crow and the political violence known as Jim Crow, which became a template for the Nazis. Right. It was born in Wilmington, North Carolina, in 1898, when, in the sense that a coup d'état was successful and the federal government didn't respond. And in that same moment, a couple hundred miles away, a corporation was being chartered that allowed for arteries of capital to flow into a black community.
Now, what city was that?
Durham.
Durham.
That's North Carolina Mutual Insurance Company, which arguably was part of one of the important corporations that allowed for the flourishing of a black Wall Street and a black middle class, which meant a greater share in power in the city of Durham, not equal.
Yeah.
But there was you had to listen to black communities in Durham in ways that you didn't have to listen in Greenville.
Well, that's what's so interesting about